One of the fatalities outside of China was in Hong Kong. Bill Neely is on the ground there with more.
Yeah, hi, Lindsay. Another rise in the virus figures coming from China. 121 new deaths reported in the last 24 hours and more than 5,000 new infections. Now, I've just been speaking to a professor of infectious diseases here in Hong Kong, and the Chinese medical community is not overly worried about these figures. Remember, yesterday there was a spike of 15,000 new infections, but this can all be explained by that new definition China has of what constitutes having the virus. Basically, if a doctor says you have a chest infection after a chest scan, that's good enough for you to go to hospital and get treatment for this virus. So the numbers have spiked as a result of that, but doctors are confident that in the next few days, those numbers will begin to come down. However, that doesn't completely explain 121 new deaths, because the previous biggest figure before yesterday was 106. So it's pretty clear that the virus certainly hasn't stopped, isn't being necessarily contained, although in Hubei province the Chinese are taking extraordinary measures. The latest one is to ask people who've had the virus and recovered to give blood plasma so that those antibodies can be used to treat people who are also sick from the virus. Now, there's no great medical evidence that this is going to make a deal of difference, but people there are desperate. 1,700 medical workers, for example, have been infected by the virus and 6 have died. China is now pouring in $18 billion into trying to contain this virus, and some extraordinary wartime measures that have now been expanded. It's now 3 cities under wartime control. In other words, not only is the city quarantined and locked down, but buildings are locked so that 1.5 million people in those 3 cities are literally prisoners in their own homes. And also people are being tracked. Their mobile phone data is being used to see if they've been in Hubei province over the last month. And if they have, they are literally taken out of their homes and put into quarantine, some of them in very makeshift surroundings. And people are complaining that there are no medical facilities in some of these. Well, they're described as shelters, and actually that some people are dying in those conditions. So a pretty desperate situation in Hubei province, but 98% of the cases at the moment are in Hubei. So you could say that it's being controlled. Here in Hong Kong, just 3 new cases of infections and only 3 deaths outside China, in the Philippines, here in Hong Kong and in Japan. So actually, the Chinese are confident that they are doing enough to contain it. United States, not quite so sure. Certainly voices coming out of the White House like the top economic advisor, Larry Kudlow, saying that China is not being transparent enough and that they're disappointed at China's reaction. China hitting back, the foreign ministry saying today, we are cooperating not just with the United States, but with a lot of countries, and we're satisfied that we're doing all we can.